Somewhere above the Arctic Circle, a plane disappeared from radar. Not slowly, not violently, but as if it had been turned off. No distress call, no explosion, no explanation. Only silence, and a truth buried so deep that killing 42 people was considered acceptable collateral, and the long plot began. No one was supposed to survive the crash. That was the official statement released before sunrise, before doubt could form, before questions could grow teeth. A mechanical failure, severe weather, an unavoidable tragedy over the Arctic Circle. 42 lives lost. No survivors. The world accepted it because the world has learned to trust certainty when it is delivered quickly and without hesitation. Major Ethan Cole did not accept it. He was awake when his phone rang at 2:17 a.m. in Frankfurt. The room was dark, unfamiliar, designed to leave no impression. Rain slid down the window, blurring the city into streaks of light. The phone vibrated once, stopped, then vibrated again. Cole stared at it for a moment before answering. Years of intelligence work had taught him that hesitation often mattered more than speed. He answered without speaking. The voice on the other end was calm, precise, and utterly confident. It did not ask who he was. It did not introduce itself. It spoke as if the outcome had already been decided. Major Ethan Cole, you were selected because you follow orders, and because you understand when silence matters more than truth. Cole sat up slowly, his mind clearing, his instincts fully awake. He had heard that tone before, in rooms without windows, from people whose names never appeared in reports. You have 10 seconds, he said. The aircraft that disappeared over the Arctic didn't crash. It was brought down. One passenger survived. If she speaks to anyone else, millions will die. The line went dead. Cole remained seated on the edge of the bed long after the call ended, listening to the hum of the city outside. There was no follow-up call, no clarification, no reassurance. That alone told him the voice had spoken the truth. Lies always came with explanations. Truths came with silence. By morning, the story was everywhere. News anchors spoke with solemn authority. Aviation experts filled studio screens, pointing to diagrams, explaining turbulence patterns and mechanical stress as if repetition could replace evidence. Government officials expressed sympathy and promised transparency. The world moved on. Cole did not. He accessed satellite data using credentials he technically no longer possessed. He reviewed radar paths that ended too cleanly, transponder logs that stopped mid-sequence instead of mid-failure. This was not how accidents behaved. Accidents were chaotic. This was precise. Someone had reached into the sky and rewritten events in real time. By mid-morning, Cole was escorted through Frankfurt Airport by men who did not show identification and did not need to. His sealed orders were waiting on the seat of a private aircraft before he boarded. Destination listed as Svalbard. Purpose unspecified. No briefing followed. No questions were invited. As the aircraft climbed into grey skies, Cole understood something most people never would. When information is withheld completely, it is because even fragments are dangerous. Svalbard was a place designed to discourage curiosity. Ice, wind, and silence stretched in every direction. The facility was buried beneath permafrost and steel, accessible only through a tunnel carved into the frozen ground. Inside, the air smelled of antiseptic and machinery. Cold white lights reflected off metal walls and sealed doors. Dr. Mara Voss lay in a medical bay, pale against white sheets, wires tracing the fragile rhythm of her heartbeat. Her eyes opened as Cole approached. "You came," she whispered. "They will kill me," she said, before he could speak. "Not because I survived, because I understood." Her voice was weak but urgent, every word weighed carefully, as if she knew she might not get another chance. She told him her name had been removed from the flight manifest before the aircraft ever took off. She told him that was intentional. She told him the crash was not the beginning of the story. And then the alarms began. Red lights flooded the corridors. Automatic doors slammed shut with mechanical finality. Men in black tactical armor moved through the facility with surgical efficiency. No insignia, no flags, no shouted orders. They did not hesitate. They did not negotiate. They executed. Cole grabbed Mara and ran. Gunfire echoed through sterile corridors as explosions sealed sections of the facility behind them. Files burned. Servers were wiped. Cameras went dark. History was being corrected in real time. They escaped through maintenance tunnels as the facility erased itself, leaving nothing behind that could raise questions later. Above ground, the Arctic wind cut through them like a warning. They were hunted now, not by criminals, not by soldiers, but by something far more dangerous. An idea made operational, an enforcement mechanism without a nation. They moved constantly, across borders, through cities that felt increasingly hostile. Safe houses failed one by one. Every authority Cole trusted revealed itself as compromised. Every institution already knew part of the truth. Silence had been chosen long ago. Mara spoke in fragments as they traveled, always watching shadows, always expecting betrayal. The signals beneath Antarctic ice were not random. They were responses. Humanity had triggered them once before, and paid the price. "The world is not ending," she said quietly one night, in a room that did not feel safe. It already ended once. She explained planetary neurological collapse, cycles in which Earth itself loses the ability to sustain advanced consciousness. Not extinction by war or impact, but by silence. Civilizations had risen before. Civilizations had vanished. Humanity was not the first, just the latest. Cole understood then that trust was no longer a moral choice. It was a liability, and silence was not the absence of sound. It was a weapon. They did not sleep that night. Sleep required a belief in tomorrow, and tomorrow had become a variable neither of them trusted. Outside, the city breathed normally, traffic lights cycling, distant sirens, laughter leaking from bars, but inside the room every sound felt amplified, every shadow heavy with intention. Mara finally spoke as dawn thinned the darkness. "The signal was first detected 70 years ago," she said. "Not by astronomers, by mathematicians, a pattern hidden inside background radiation. It wasn't noise, it was structure, a language too slow for speech, too vast for instruments designed for stars." Cole watched the window, the street below, a delivery truck idling too long. And governments knew? "They always know first," she said. "The difference is what they decide to tell the rest of us. The earliest conclusions were dismissed, then buried, then classified beyond classification. The signal wasn't a warning, it was a response. Something humanity had done, something tied to technological acceleration, had crossed a threshold. The planet itself reacted, not emotionally, not consciously, but neurologically. Earth, as a system, had limits, pushed too far, too fast, and it began to shut down. Not immediately, slowly, quietly. Civilizations before us reached that point, she said. They left no ruins because collapse wasn't violent. It was selective. Memory failed. Coordination dissolved. Language simplified. Within generations, advanced knowledge vanished, not because it was destroyed, but because the minds capable of holding it no longer existed. Cole turned to her. And this time we move faster. Much faster. They changed locations before sunrise. A train south, tickets purchased with identities that would cease to exist by evening. Cole watched reflections in the glass, counting faces, measuring distance. When a man 2 rows back stood up at the same time they did, Cole already had his hand on the weapon hidden beneath his jacket. The man passed without looking at them. Paranoia was no longer a weakness. It was survival adapting in real time. Mara explained that a council had formed decades earlier. Not a single government. A convergence. Military, corporate, scientific. People who understood that public disclosure would create panic long before solutions existed. They called it preservation. Not of humanity. Of continuity. Most people won't survive the next cycle, she said. Not because they'll die. Because they'll forget who they are. The solution wasn't to stop progress. That was impossible. The solution was selection. Preservation of cognitive continuity through controlled environments, underground cities, shielded habitats, populations small enough to manage, large enough to rebuild. Cole stopped walking. You're talking about choosing who gets to remember the future. Mara didn't deny it. They reached the safe house by nightfall. It was already compromised. Cole sensed it before the door opened. The air was wrong. Too clean. Too still. He pulled Mara back just as gunfire shredded the doorway. They fled through an alley as the building behind them erupted in controlled demolition. Evidence erased. Again. They hid beneath a rail terminal as surveillance drones swept overhead, their hum blending with the city's pulse. Mara's hands shook for the first time. They're accelerating, she said. That means we're close. Close to what? The activation window. She told him about Antarctica. Beneath the ice lay structures not built by humans, but modified by them. Ancient chambers that amplified the planetary signal. The Council believed triggering a controlled collapse would be preferable to an uncontrolled one. A managed forgetting. A reset with survivors already positioned to rebuild. Cole understood the scale then. Not conspiracy. Architecture. A system designed to outlive outrage. How long do we have? Weeks, she said. Maybe days. They stole a vehicle and crossed borders without stopping. Cole contacted an old ally, a man who owed him a life and regretted surviving it. The meeting place was an abandoned monastery in the Alps, stone walls older than most lies. The ally listened in silence, then laughed softly. Do you know what happens if you're right? He asked. Everything ends, Cole said. No. Everything continues. Just without us. The ally gave them access codes, transport, a final favor he knew would kill him. As they left, Cole did not look back. The Antarctic base was vast, humming with restrained power. Beneath kilometers of ice, corridors stretched like arteries. People moved with purpose, calm, convinced they were saving the world. Mara led him to the core chamber. A sphere of light pulsed slowly, rhythmically, synchronized with something far deeper than machinery. This is the interface, she said. Once activated, the process cannot be stopped, only shaped. Cole stared at the light, at the future being decided without consent. Who chose you? he asked. She met his gaze. No one. I understood the data before they did. Alarms sounded again. This time they weren't coming for her. They were coming for him. Cole realized the truth too late. He had been brought here not as an obstacle, but as a witness. Someone who would understand why resistance was futile. Someone whose silence could be trusted. Mara stepped toward the console. "I'm sorry, Ethan," she said. There was never another ending. He moved faster than she expected. Gunfire echoed through the chamber as systems screamed in protest. The light flickered. For a moment, just a moment, the signal destabilized. Cole didn't know if that moment mattered. He only knew the world above would never hear about it. And that silence, once again, had won. The first thing Cole noticed was the quiet. Not the absence of sound, but the kind of silence that felt engineered, as if noise itself had been edited out of the world. He opened his eyes to white light and slow, steady breathing that was not entirely his own. He was alive. That fact alone meant the plan had not gone exactly as intended. He lay in a recovery chamber, beneath the Antarctic ice, his body heavy, his thoughts slow but intact. Screens hovered nearby, displaying data streams that moved too evenly, too calmly. No alarms, no panic. If something had gone wrong, it had been contained. Mara was not there. Cole sat up slowly. No restraints, no guards. That was more unsettling than either would have been. When he stood, the floor warmed beneath his feet, responding automatically, the system adjusting to his presence. Whoever built this place had planned for survivors, just not for descent. He walked through corridors that felt less like a bunker and more like a city holding its breath. People moved quietly, efficiently, eyes forward. None of them looked surprised to see him. That meant his survival was expected. A man waited in the central chamber. Older, calm. His posture carried authority without needing reinforcement. "You disrupted the timing," the man said. "Not the outcome." Cole didn't answer. The man gestured toward the core display. The pulsing light had changed. Slower now, deeper. "The collapse will occur gradually," the man continued. "Memory decay first, then abstraction. Complex systems will fail, not violently, but politely. People will call it confusion, fatigue, cultural decline. And you think hiding underground saves you?" The man smiled faintly. "It saves continuity. History does not need everyone. It needs witnesses." Cole thought of the surface, of cities full of people unaware they were already being written out of the future. "Where's Mara?" "She chose to stay with the system," the man said. "Someone must guide the transition." Cole understood then. Mara had never been trying to stop the end. She had been trying to shape it, to reduce suffering by deciding who would remember how to rebuild. "What about me?" Cole asked. The man studied him. "You're proof that resistance existed, that the decision was not unanimous. In time, that matters." Cole laughed softly, a bitter sound swallowed by the chamber. "You don't want silence," he said. "You want control." The man did not deny it. Cole was escorted to the surface hours later. No violence, no urgency, a courtesy reserved for obsolete assets. The cold air above the ice felt sharper than before, as if the world itself had thinned. A transport aircraft waited. No markings. No destination listed. When Cole returned to civilization, nothing looked different. Streets were full. Screens glowed. Life continued with convincing normalcy. But cracks were already forming. Technology unchanged, ambition softened, history shortened. People stopped asking certain questions because the questions no longer formed properly in their minds. And yet, not everything was lost. In quiet moments, some people felt it, a sense of something missing, a depth they couldn't explain. Children stared at the stars longer than they should have. Artists created patterns that felt familiar without knowing why. The signal continued, not as a command, as a rhythm. Cole died quietly, but not physically, his memories intact to the end. He never knew if his interference had changed anything. He only knew that endings were rarely as absolute as those who planned them believed. Far beneath the ice, the system adjusted. And far above it, humanity went on, simpler, slower, quieter, not extinct, not enlightened, just reset. And somewhere in the silence, the planet breathed again. Armageddon was averted, but the experience and fear lives forever. Please subscribe to this channel for more stories.